If you're watching this video, then you have probably seen my critically acclaimed documentary on the subject, Vaporwave: A Brief History, and wish to learn more about the incredibly broad and musically challenged genre of Vaporwave. With this video series, I plan on going through the various histories of a different assortment of genres that have all been influences on this bizarre art movement. Not only will I be dealing with music genres, but I will also delve into the realms of film, video games, photography, memes, and other interesting forms of art that have helped usher in this internet-born movement. Because, like I've said before, Vapour is much larger than just a silly little niche on Reddit and should be presented as such. Before we delve into the drawn-out history lesson, we must first fully understand what Vaporwave exactly is all about. First things first, as many that are heavily involved with the vapor scene have noticed, the extremely sample-heavy genre has evolved greatly out of its initial roots of just being slowed-down 80s elevator music, and has become more of an umbrella term for music with a strange, heavily conceptual ambiance surrounding it. Some artists, including the likes of HKE, have labeled the genre simply as a recontextualization of music. More and more often I see artists branching out of the genre and putting a new twist onto what their perceived definition as to what Vaporwave exactly is all about. So now we have come to a point where nobody really knows what the hell Vaporwave is anymore, and we just keep pushing it further and further out, trying to figure out what its main overarching goal is as an art movement. It was one of the main reasons why I started this entire new branch of the genre titled Hard Vapor, an entire movement with a goal that would manage to be a complete opposite of what Vaporwave originally set out to be. But the real question is, what exactly makes both of these genres vapor? My goal for this video is to essentially piece together what exactly the rules of vapor consist of. These are not to be set in stone, and are just things that I've noticed within the movement that seem to repeat themselves often enough for it to become the essential guidelines of being able to consider your music as part of this vapor movement. Now, some of you might have noticed, the title of this video is called Influences of Vapor and not Influences of Vaporwave. Why is this, you ask? Well, some of you might remember a time around a year ago when I posted a drunken rant on Reddit exclaiming the fact that Vaporwave should just drop the wave suffix altogether and continue onwards to simply be called Vapor. Now, why do I think this? Well, for one reason, Vapor just sounds cleaner to begin with. Second, my goal for this series of videos, and of my initial documentary for that matter, was to bring Vaporwave to a more mainstream audience, so as more people can develop it into something greater than it is currently. I wanted to change it because the name itself seemed to turn the average person away from getting involved in it. But again, a lot of people in the world don't give a shit about looking deeper into something they stumble upon and tend to dismiss things because of their initial impression. If the standard initial impression of Vaporwave is, this name is stupid, then it shouldn't be called Vaporwave. It should be called something simple and easily graspable for the public audience to get a hold of and enjoy. When I posted this, I had people complain, mostly about the fact that if we change Vaporwave to Vapor, it would lose the important connotation to chillwave, one of the defining influences of the genre. Now, that may be well good and true, but we have all seen hundreds of releases that aren't even connected to that genre, nor have any discernible similarities between the two. Look at releases from 2814, for example, or Tech Noir, or even Jungle 2000 by B-Brains. None of those are connected to chillwave whatsoever. Also, we have already seen the development of various subgenres that use the Vapor prefix, such as Vapor Trap, Vapor Noise, Vapor Goth, Vapor Sludge, and many others, including Hard Vapor, although I won't talk about that much as it is something that I invented myself. Now, wouldn't it make more sense for all of these to be subgenres for just Vapor and not Vaporwave? But there's always people complaining, aren't there? What about all those other classic Vaporwave albums that use that classic hypnagogic style? Well, here's a simple solution. Vaporwave is the subgenre of Vapor, which is essentially all the music out there that exhibits what classic Vaporwave sounded like when it first came to surface. So stuff like Cat System Corp, Phoenix 2772, Mike Tenay, Vectroid, Dan Mason, and others would fall under the Vaporwave category, and everything else that people bitch about being not Vaporwave just becomes part of the bigger umbrella term Vapor. Now that we put to rest as to categorizing this massive library of releases, we need to actually define what this broad term of Vapour actually means. I have generated 3 different forms of innovation that Vapour has brought to surface. I do not intend for these to be the only defining attributes, as the genre is still in a very developmental stage, but these are things to think about when defining and categorizing this confusing and incredibly broad genre/art movement. From what we have gathered from initial Vapour releases, one of the biggest qualities we have seen in this movement is the revolution of simply slowing down music. This innovation is something that has stemmed from Vaporwave and has become something of a trademark for the majority of its releases. We can safely say that most of these albums tend to be very slow and droning to some degree, almost dreamlike. While slowed down music has existed in some form in the past with artists such as DJ Screw or Pink Floyd even, Vapour is the first genre of its kind to utilize it in a way that evokes some kind of narrative or distorted sense of reality. The key idea behind slowing down previously used music is the idea of reconstructing something that has been done numerous times before. The key idea behind slowing down previously used music is the concept of simply reconstructing something that has been done numerous times before. It seems silly to have an entire genre that's based off of recontextualizing only one specific genre of music, and as it is seen clearly, has already been done with numerous other genres including juke, trap, ambient, drone, gabber, and several others. This brings us to our second form of innovation. From what I've seen in the past few years of development in the genre, it seems that Vapour is pushing towards creating experiments dealing with heavily conceptual narratives tied behind it. All of the notable releases that have come out of this movement seem to be fixated on the idea of taking the listener somewhere they've never been before, but still having a personal tie-in of emotion which has mostly been represented as nostalgia. This in turn makes the listener completely enthralled and emotionally tied towards the overall feeling and ambiance of a particular album, despite the cultural differences that may be presented. The word Vapour itself can stem towards many things that are happening in current times. The idea of technology coming to fruition as being a strong influence as to how we conduct our lives is very apparent with today's world. Instead of smoking, we vape. Instead of reading a book, we read a tablet. Instead of buying a movie, we stream it on Netflix. Our whole lives have become fixated on experiencing entertainment and pleasure through an immaterial medium. Vapour is not real, but it's replicated for it to appear so. With new developments such as virtual reality becoming more and more relevant, this music coming out right now is an ode to the idea of experiencing life without actually having to leave your own home. This philosophy isn't anything new and has existed within art for a very long time, but has only begun to resurface once more because of new innovations like the internet, which can now bring us anywhere we want almost instantaneously. There have already been movements pushing this idea forward with music venues such as SBF 420 that have invented a way to host a live performance that anyone with an internet connection can watch. It brought forth the idea that music isn't something that should be experienced by only one particular group of people, but something that we as an entire planet can be a part of. Music that has tried to be this conceptual has often failed commercially in the past, as it tended to be too experimental for casual listeners to enjoy, but that is rapidly changing. One of the first to make music of this kind was the highly esteemed British producer Joe Meek, who was mostly known for launching the British invasion with his instrumental hit Telstar in 1962. He was known for being an innovator within mixing and producing, and was the first of his kind to construct a home studio in his London-based apartment back in the early 1960s. He was also known to have no knowledge of music theory and was tone deaf, but still managed to write and record hundreds of various singles, usually by making poorly made vocal demos beforehand of songs he claimed to have heard in his dreams. He claimed to have a few songs, including such like Johnny Remember Me, to have been written by the late Buddy Holly, who he often said to have visited him from beyond the grave. He often used unorthodox ways of recording his sounds, usually by using random tools found around his apartment, including the sounds of coins dripping into a toilet with heavy reverb added to create an eerie ambiance, which was used in one of his most highly esteemed conceptual works, I Hear a New World, recorded by the Blue Men in early 1960. It was a collection of spooky, drawn-out pop tunes with pitch-shifted vocals made to recreate sounds of what he imagined to originate from outer space, essentially slowed-down pop music from alien worlds. This is something that can easily fit within a dream catalog release if it were made today, as it incorporates two of the essential vapor qualities that I have discussed so far within this video. However, it is missing one major key aspect that has been apparent within vapor since its very beginnings, and it could easily be one of the most important of them all, and it is one that many tend not to talk about. Let's go back to the very beginning, shall we? Floral Shop. It was an album created by an American using American samples and popularized primarily by an American audience, and yet the majority of the album used Japanese characters for pretty much all of its song titles. You would think that the use of an outside language would inhibit the growth towards an English-speaking audience, and yet it was the defining attribute that made it that much more appealing. In fact, it was so appealing that the majority of Vapour releases that have come out since Floral Shop use Japanese as the language for all their songs, despite many of the artists having absolutely no knowledge of the language or culture. This is the aspect of Vapour that I think is the most innovative, because it is the first steps into making a completely globalized music genre. Why should we stop at Japanese? This provides a whole new market of creating music of other cultures that are directly not of our own. We can finally listen to songs of another language, and that quality itself is what makes it more appealing, not less. The internet has connected us in a way in which we don't have to separate each other anymore by class, culture, or language. It's no surprise that the Vapour community is one of the most inclusive of its kind because of how broad it is nationally. There are Vapour scenes that have influenced every corner of the world, including Brazil, Russia, Japan, Korea, and many others. So far, most of Vaporwave has delved into cultural themes that are solely directed towards America in the 1980s and 90s, and yet it appeals to people who know nothing of that culture. Why stop there when you can replicate a certain culture in a Vapour release and bring people to a place or state of mind that is foreign to them, and yet they can connect with it because of the lame fact of human connection. We have seen this before in genres like hip-hop, where it brought the mainstream closer to the ghettos of primarily black urban neighborhoods in America. It showed a grit that was real, and yet the majority of its audience was not black, but in fact affluent white people who would never in their right mind set foot anywhere near the hood, but still managed to relate to it. Why? Because the truth is, there is ultimately nothing different between that of an affluent white kid compared to that of a poor black kid, other than superficial rewards such as financial stability. This idea within music is being brought to a whole new level, where instead of taking something personal and revealing it to the world, you are taking something completely foreign to yourself, but then distorting it within a narrative that makes it your own. It is one of the reasons why anonymity was so important within the genre, because now we didn't have to attach a face to music in order to understand where it came from. All you needed was the music itself. We cannot say anymore that we have to listen to music that is made specifically for us. No more can we say that certain styles of music are garbage or uninspired, and you want to know why? Because we took shitty elevator music from the 80s and made it beautiful. If the music takes you somewhere foreign and mysterious, that's all that matters, and the idea of personalized music will slowly die, because none of us can truly say that we are completely different from one another, and we'll all let this music bring us together, because fuck racism.